The Duke's twin daughters had not slept through a single night in 4 months, and their anguished cries were about to change one woman's life forever. This is the story of how a lowly scullery maid uncovered a terrible secret hidden within the stone walls of Ashworth Manor, and how her courage would either save 2 innocent lives or destroy her own. But before we continue, check if you are already subscribed to the channel and write in the comments where you are watching this video from. Monday afternoon, March the 18th, 1873. Eleanor Grant climbs the servant stairs of Ashworth Manor, her arms aching from carrying buckets of washwater. At 23 years old, she has worked as a scullery maid for only 3 weeks, but the sound that echoes through these halls has already carved itself into her soul, the crying of 2 infant girls, desperate and unceasing, a sound that no amount of wealth or title can silence. Lady Catherine and Lady Margaret, twin daughters of Duke William Ashworth, have not known peace since their birth 4 months ago. Their wails pierce through oak doors and tapestried walls, a constant reminder that something is terribly wrong. "Dear God, those poor children," Eleanor whispers, pausing on the landing to wipe sweat from her brow. The twins have been crying for nearly 5 hours today. Yesterday it was 7. The day before it was 9 straight hours that seemed to stretch into eternity. Duke Ashworth appears in the hallway, like a ghost of his former self. At 36 years old, this man who once commanded respect throughout Yorkshire now shuffles with the gait of someone twice his age. Dark circles shadow his eyes, and his normally impeccable clothing hangs loose on his frame. "Mrs. Pemberton," he calls to the head housekeeper, his voice cracking with exhaustion. "It has been 4 months. 4 months since my daughters have slept properly. 4 months since their mother died, bringing them into this world, and I cannot even give them peace." Mrs. Pemberton, a stern woman of 50 years who has served the Ashworth family for 3 decades, wrings her hands with genuine concern. Her small notebook, where she records every detail of the household, trembles in her grip. "Your Grace, you must rest. You have not slept more than 2 hours at a time since the birth." "Rest?" The Duke's bitter laugh echoes off the marble floors. "How can I rest when I hear my daughters suffering? What kind of father am I that I cannot ease their pain?" Eleanor watches from the shadows of the stairwell. The raw agony in the Duke's voice moves her deeply. She lost her own child just 15 months ago, a son who lived only 3 days before God called him home. She knows the particular torture of watching an infant suffer and being powerless to help. The Duke grabs his coat with shaking hands. "I'm fetching Dr. Blackwell again. This is the 4th time this week, but there must be something he can do. There must be." The heavy door slams behind Duke Ashworth, and for a moment, the manor falls into relative quiet. The twins' crying continues from the nursery, but softer now, as if they too are exhausted from their endless distress. Mrs. Pemberton notices Eleanor on the stairs. "Girl, you should not be lingering in the family wing. Return to your duties in the scullery at once." "Yes, ma'am," Eleanor responds quickly, but something pulls her toward the nursery instead. Perhaps it is the memory of her own lost child, or perhaps it is simply human compassion, but she finds herself drawn to that room like a moth to flame. She knows she should not enter. Scullery maids do not belong in the family quarters. Her place is in the basement kitchen, scrubbing pots and hauling water. But the crying grows louder, and Eleanor's feet carry her forward despite her better judgment. The nursery door stands slightly ajar. Through the gap, Eleanor can see 2 ornate cribs, each draped in the finest lace money can buy. Nurse Hartley, the stern woman hired specifically to care for the twins, sits in a chair by the window, staring out at the gardens with an expression of barely contained frustration. "Worthless creatures," Nurse Hartley mutters, not realizing anyone can hear. 4 months of this infernal noise. The Duke pays me handsomely, but no amount of money is worth this torment." Eleanor's blood runs cold at the woman's callous words. These are not worthless creatures. These are innocent babies who need help. Lady Catherine lies in her crib, her tiny face red and swollen from crying. Her little fists clench and unclench, and her legs kick weakly against her silk blankets. In the adjacent crib, Lady Margaret displays the same distress, her dark hair matted with sweat, her small mouth open in a cry that seems to echo her sister's pain. Eleanor has seen enough. She pushes the door open wider and steps inside. Nurse Hartley whirls around, her face flushing with anger. "What are you doing here? Scullery maids have no business in the nursery." "I heard the babies crying," Eleanor says quietly, her eyes fixed on the suffering infants. "I thought perhaps I could help." "Help?" Nurse Hartley stands, her considerable height meant to intimidate. You presume to know better than trained nurses and physicians. The Duke has brought in the finest medical minds in Yorkshire. 3 different doctors have examined these children. What could a common scullery maid possibly offer? Eleanor does not back down. Something about those crying babies calls to her maternal instincts, buried but not dead since the loss of her own child. May I just hold one of them? Please. Just for a moment. Absolutely not. These are the Duke's daughters, not dolls for servants to play with. Now leave before I report your impertinence to Mrs. Pemberton. But Eleanor does not leave. Instead, she steps closer to Lady Catherine's crib, and something extraordinary happens. The baby's crying begins to soften, not stop entirely but diminish, as if she senses a different presence in the room. Nurse Hartley's expression shifts from anger to something else, something that Eleanor cannot quite identify. Is it surprise? Or is it something darker? I said leave, Nurse Hartley repeats, but her voice lacks its earlier conviction. Eleanor reaches down and gently lifts Lady Catherine from her crib. The infant is so light, so fragile, that Eleanor's heart breaks at the feel of her. The baby's crying does not stop immediately, but there is a change in its quality, less desperate, more like the normal fussing of an overtired child. Shh, little one, Eleanor whispers, cradling Catherine against her chest and swaying gently. Shh, you are safe now. You are safe. Within 30 seconds, Lady Catherine's cries fade to whimpers. Within a minute, the whimpers quiet to occasional sniffles, and within 2 minutes, the baby's eyes begin to close in what looks like actual, genuine sleep. Nurse Hartley stares, her face pale. That is impossible. Eleanor reaches for Lady Margaret with her free arm. The second twin is heavier than her sister, and Eleanor struggles for a moment to balance both infants, but she manages. Margaret's crying also begins to soften as Eleanor holds both babies against her chest, humming a low lullaby her own mother taught her years ago. Sleep, my darling, sleep, Eleanor sings softly. The night is dark, but morning comes. Sleep, my darlings, sleep. Both babies grow still. Their breathing evens out. Their tiny fists unclench. For the first time in 4 months, Lady Catherine and Lady Margaret Ashworth fall into what appears to be genuine, peaceful sleep. The silence in the nursery is almost shocking after hours of constant crying. Nurse Hartley's hands tremble as she grips the back of her chair. How did you do that? I did nothing special, Eleanor replies honestly, still swaying gently despite the weight of both infants. I simply held them with care. You must put them down now, Nurse Hartley says, but her voice sounds strange, almost frightened. The Duke will return soon with Dr. Blackwell. If he finds a scullery maid in here, holding his daughters, he will see that they are finally sleeping. Eleanor interrupts, her voice steady despite her racing heart. He will see that they are at peace for the first time in months. But even as she speaks, Eleanor notices something that makes her stomach turn cold. On the small table beside Nurse Hartley's chair sits a collection of medicine bottles. Eleanor can read only a few words, her education being limited to what the village schoolmaster taught before she had to leave school at age 12 to work. But one word stands out clearly on the largest bottle: laudanum. Eleanor knows that name. Laudanum is a powerful medicine made from opium. Her own mother had used it once for terrible tooth pain, and even a small dose had made her sleep for 14 hours straight and speak strangely when she woke. Why would infant twins need laudanum? Nurse Hartley, Eleanor says carefully, still holding the sleeping babies. What medicines have you been giving the children? The woman's face hardens. That is none of your concern. Medical matters are between the physicians and myself. Eleanor's mind races as she continues to sway gently with the sleeping twins. Her own child had died from a fever, but before his death, the local physician had warned her mother against giving infants anything stronger than chamomile tea. Their little bodies cannot handle strong medicines, he had said. What helps an adult can poison a baby. How much laudanum have they been given? Eleanor presses, her voice low but firm. Nurse Hartley's expression shifts from defensiveness to something more calculating. Dr. Blackwell prescribed it himself. 1 drop, 3 times daily, to help them sleep and calm their nerves. 1 drop, 3 times daily. Eleanor knows enough about measurements to understand that even small amounts of strong medicine can build up in a tiny body over time. 4 months of daily laudanum doses. 4 months of these babies being given a substance meant for adults in pain. When did you start giving them the medicine? Eleanor asks. 2 weeks after birth, when the crying became unbearable. Now put those babies down immediately and leave this room, or I will have you dismissed from service. But Eleanor does not move. She looks down at the peacefully sleeping faces of Catherine and Margaret, and a terrible suspicion begins to form in her mind. What if the laudanum is not helping them sleep? What if it is causing their distress? She has heard stories in the village about people who become dependent on opium medicines. Her uncle had injured his back in a mill accident and been given laudanum for the pain. After 3 months, he could not function without it. When the doctor tried to stop the medicine, Uncle Thomas had suffered terrible shaking, sweating, and agitation until he received another dose. Could the same thing be happening to these tiny babies? The sound of boots on the marble stairs interrupts her thoughts. Duke Ashworth has returned with Dr. Blackwell, and their voices carry through the hallway. Your Grace, I have examined the twins multiple times, Dr. Blackwell is saying. His voice is tired, frustrated. I find no physical ailment. Their lungs are strong, their hearts beat steadily, their color is good. Some infants simply cry more than others. For 4 months straight, Doctor? Is that truly normal? Their footsteps grow closer to the nursery door. Nurse Hartley hisses at Eleanor. Put them down now! But Eleanor stands her ground, holding the sleeping twins. When Duke Ashworth pushes open the nursery door, his exhausted eyes widen in shock. What is happening here? He demands, but his voice lacks anger. He seems too tired for rage, too worn down by months of sleepless nights and helpless frustration. Doctor. Blackwell, a portly man of about 60 with impressive side whiskers, peers at the scene with professional interest. Who is this woman? A scullery maid, Your Grace, Nurse Hartley says quickly. She entered the nursery without permission. I was just sending her away when you arrived. But Duke Ashworth is not looking at Eleanor with anger. He is looking at his daughters, truly sleeping for the first time in months, their faces peaceful in the arms of a common servant. How did you accomplish this? He whispers, moving closer. 4 months. 4 months of physicians and nurses and medicines, and they never sleep like this. What did you do? Eleanor meets the Duke's gaze directly, something a scullery maid should never do, but desperation makes her bold. Your Grace, I did nothing except hold them with gentleness, but I must ask you something important. Has anyone questioned the medicines being given to your daughters? Dr. Blackwell bristles. Young woman, I am a trained physician with 30 years of experience. I do not appreciate having my medical judgment questioned by a servant. I mean no disrespect, sir, Eleanor says, carefully adjusting her hold on the sleeping babies. But laudanum is very strong medicine. My uncle took it for an injury, and when the doctor stopped giving it to him, he became terribly sick and agitated until he received more. Could the same be happening to Lady Catherine and Lady Margaret? The room falls silent. Duke Ashworth stares at Eleanor, then at Dr. Blackwell, then at the medicine bottles on the table. Laudanum withdrawal, the Duke says slowly. Is such a thing possible in infants? Dr. Blackwell's face flushes red. Your Grace, I prescribe the smallest possible doses. Laudanum is a standard treatment for infant colic and sleeplessness. You said it yourself, Doctor. Eleanor presses on, knowing she is risking her position but unable to stop. You can find no physical ailment. The babies are healthy, yet they cry constantly. What if they cry because their bodies need the medicine? What if stopping it, even for a few hours, makes them sick? Duke Ashworth moves to the medicine table and picks up the laudanum bottle. His hands shake as he reads the label. How long have my daughters been receiving this? Since they were 2 weeks old, Nurse Hartley answers, her voice defensive. Dr. Blackwell prescribed it, and the crying did improve initially. Initially, Eleanor repeats. But then it got worse again. Did it not? And the doses had to be increased? She can see from the Duke's expression that she has struck close to truth. Nurse Hartley looks away, unable or unwilling to confirm, but her silence speaks volumes. Dr. Blackwell draws himself up with offended dignity. Your Grace, I strongly object to having my professional opinion undermined by an uneducated servant girl. The medical treatment of your daughters is a matter for qualified professionals, not for... The qualified professionals have failed, Duke Ashworth interrupts, his voice sharp with 4 months of accumulated frustration. Look at my daughters. They sleep peacefully in the arms of this woman who has done nothing except hold them with care. Meanwhile, your medicines and your expertise have brought them no relief. Dr. Blackwell's mouth opens and closes, like a fish pulled from water. Your Grace, I must protest. You may leave, Doctor. Send your bill to my steward. And consider our professional relationship concluded. The physician's face turns from red to purple. You are dismissing me, based on the wild theories of a scullery maid. I am dismissing you because my daughters are suffering, and 4 months of your treatment has brought no improvement. Good day, sir. Dr. Blackwell storms from the nursery, his footsteps heavy with indignation. The door slams behind him, causing Lady Margaret to stir in Eleanor's arms. Eleanor immediately resumes her gentle swaying, and the baby settles back into sleep. Duke Ashworth watches this small interaction with intense focus. What is your name? Eleanor Grant, Your Grace. And you lost a child, did you not? I can see it in the way you hold my daughters. That is not the uncertain grip of someone unfamiliar with infants. Eleanor's throat tightens. Yes, Your Grace. My son lived only 3 days. I know what it means to watch a child suffer and feel helpless to ease their pain. The Duke's expression softens with shared grief. My wife died bringing these babies into the world. 4 months I have been both father and grieving widower, trying to honor her memory by caring for the daughters she died to deliver. But I have failed them. Until now. Nurse Hartley steps forward, her face pinched with displeasure. Your Grace, surely you do not intend to allow a scullery maid to care for the twins. It is highly irregular. What will people say? People will say whatever they wish regardless of my actions, the Duke replies. The question is whether my daughters will suffer or find relief. Miss Grant, would you be willing to serve as nursemaid to Catherine and Margaret? Eleanor's heart leaps with hope and terror in equal measure. To care for these babies, to ease their suffering, as she could not ease her own son's pain, would be a gift beyond measure. But Nurse Hartley's cold stare promises trouble ahead. Your Grace, I would be honored, Eleanor says carefully, but I am not trained as a nursemaid. I can only offer what my own mother taught me and what my heart tells me these babies need. That is more than anyone else has been able to provide. The Duke reaches out and gently touches Catherine's small hand. His daughter's fingers curl reflexively around his thumb, and his eyes fill with tears. 4 months. 4 months of watching them suffer. If you can truly give them peace, Miss Grant, I will be forever in your debt. What of the laudanum? Eleanor asks, knowing this is the crucial question. If my suspicions are correct, stopping it suddenly may make them very sick. Duke Ashworth looks to Nurse Hartley. Has the dose been increased over time? The woman hesitates, then nods reluctantly. Dr. Blackwell said it was necessary as they grew. We started with 1 drop 3 times daily. Now it is 3 drops 4 times daily. Eleanor's stomach turns. 3 drops 4 times daily for babies only 4 months old. The amount would be dangerous for an adult, potentially fatal for infants. We must reduce it gradually, Eleanor says, drawing on the fragments of knowledge she gained from watching the physician treat her uncle. Stopping all at once could cause seizures or worse, but every day we give a little less until their bodies no longer need it. You sound very certain for someone with no medical training, Nurse Hartley says coldly. I sound like someone who has watched opium destroy a man's health and seen what happens when it is removed too quickly. I am not a physician, but I have eyes to see and a mind that can reason. Duke Ashworth makes his decision. Miss Grant, from this moment, you are the twins' primary nursemaid. Nurse Hartley, you will assist her and follow her instructions regarding the children's care. Nurse Hartley's face goes white with shock. Your Grace, this is most irregular. A scullery maid with no training, giving orders to a certified nurse. A certified nurse who has been medicating my infant daughters with opium for 4 months while their suffering increased. The Duke responds sharply. You will cooperate fully with Miss Grant, or you will find employment elsewhere. The choice is yours. Nurse Hartley's lips press into a thin, angry line, but she drops into a stiff curtsy. As your Grace wishes. Eleanor can feel the hatred radiating from the woman like heat from a stove. She has made an enemy, she realizes, but she cannot regret it. Not when Catherine and Margaret sleep so peacefully in her arms. Your Grace, Eleanor says carefully, if I may make a request. Speak freely, Miss Grant, you have earned that right. I need Mrs. Pemberton's notebook. If we are to reduce the laudanum safely, we must keep precise records. How much we give, when we give it, how the babies respond. Every detail must be documented. Duke Ashworth nods approvingly. A wise precaution. Mrs. Pemberton will provide you with whatever materials you need. Is there anything else? Eleanor looks around the ornate nursery with its heavy curtains and stuffy air. Fresh air and sunlight, Your Grace. The nursery is beautiful, but it is like a tomb. Babies need light and air as much as adults do. The windows have been kept closed to prevent drafts, Nurse Hartley protests. Infants are delicate. Infants are stronger than you think, Eleanor counters. My son lived only 3 days, but even in that short time he grew calmer when I took him outside into the garden. Not in winter cold, of course, but on mild days with gentle sun. It did him good. The memory brings tears to her eyes, but she blinks them away. This is not about her grief. This is about saving 2 lives that can still be saved. Duke Ashworth walks to the windows and pulls back the heavy velvet curtains. Afternoon sunlight floods the nursery, illuminating dust motes in the air and revealing how dim the room had been. You are right, Miss Grant. This room feels like a place of mourning, not a place for living children. We will make changes. He turns to face her, and for the first time in months, something like hope flickers in his exhausted features. I must attend to estate business, but I will return this evening to see how my daughters fare. In the meantime, you have my complete authority to do whatever you believe is best for Catherine and Margaret. After the Duke leaves, Eleanor carefully places the sleeping twins back in their cribs. Both babies stir slightly, but do not wake. Their breathing remains even and peaceful. Nurse Hartley watches with barely concealed resentment. You have made a powerful enemy today, girl. Dr. Blackwell has influence throughout Yorkshire. When word spreads that a scullery maid questioned his medical judgment and caused his dismissal, your name will be dirt. Better my name be dirt than these babies suffer needlessly, Eleanor replies, tucking soft blankets around Catherine and Margaret. Now show me exactly how much laudanum you have been giving them, and at what times. Nurse Hartley's jaw clenches, but she complies with the Duke's orders. From a locked cabinet, she retrieves a leather journal where she has been recording the medicine doses with meticulous precision. Eleanor flips through the pages, her stomach sinking with each entry. The journal shows a clear pattern that confirms her worst fears. The twins started with 1 drop of laudanum 3 times daily in their 2nd week of life. By week 4, the dose increased to 2 drops 3 times daily. By week 8, 3 drops 3 times daily. By week 12, 3 drops 4 times daily. They were getting worse, were they not? Eleanor says, tracing the progression with her finger. Each time the dose increased, they would be calm for a few days, then the crying would return worse than before, and Dr. Blackwell would increase the dose again. Nurse Hartley does not answer, but her silence is confirmation enough. Did he not see what was happening? Did he truly believe this was helping them? Doctor. Blackwell said some infants simply need more medicine than others. Nurse Hartley finally responds, her voice defensive. He said the crying was due to colic and nerves, and the laudanum would eventually regulate their systems. But it did not regulate anything. It made them dependent on poison. Eleanor closes the journal with more force than necessary. Starting tomorrow morning, we begin reducing the doses. 1 less drop per day, until they are taking none at all. That will make them sick, Nurse Hartley warns. When the medicine is reduced, they will suffer. They are already suffering. But this suffering will have an end. The current path only leads to more dependence and more harm. Nurse Hartley's expression shifts to something calculating. You realize, of course, that when they become sick from withdrawal, everyone will blame you. The Duke will think you failed where Dr. Blackwell succeeded. Your theories will be proven wrong, and you will be back in the scullery where you belong. The woman's words carry a disturbing undertone of anticipation, as if she is looking forward to Eleanor's failure. Why do you want these babies to suffer? Eleanor asks bluntly. What harm have 2 innocent infants done to you? Nurse Hartley's face flushes. I want no such thing, but you are arrogant to think you know better than trained physicians. Your pride will be your downfall, girl, and when it happens, I will be here to pick up the pieces and restore proper order to this nursery. Before Eleanor can respond, a soft cry comes from Lady Margaret's crib. The baby is waking, and within seconds, her sister joins her. But this crying is different from the desperate wails Eleanor heard earlier. This is normal infant fussing, the kind that says, I am hungry or I need changing, not I am in agony. Eleanor moves to the cribs and assesses both babies quickly. Margaret needs a fresh diaper, and both girls are likely hungry. When did they last eat? 2 hours ago, Nurse Hartley responds. They should not be hungry yet. They are 4 months old and growing. Their bodies are trying to heal from months of opium poisoning. They need more nourishment than usual. Eleanor gently lifts Margaret from her crib. Please fetch fresh milk from the kitchen and prepare bottles for both girls. Nurse Hartley does not move. I do not take orders from scullery maids. You take orders from the Duke, and he commanded you to assist me, unless you wish to explain to His Grace why you refuse to feed his hungry daughters. The standoff lasts several long seconds before Nurse Hartley finally turns and leaves the nursery with sharp, angry footsteps. Alone with the babies for the first time, Eleanor allows herself to truly look at them. Catherine has her father's dark hair and what will likely be his strong jawline. Margaret's features are softer, perhaps more like her late mother. Both girls have blue eyes that will probably change color in the coming months, as all baby eyes do. "You poor little darlings," Eleanor whispers, holding Margaret close while Catherine fusses in her crib. 4 months of poison in your tiny bodies. But we are going to fix that. I promise you. It will be hard and you will feel sick, but on the other side is health and happiness. Margaret's crying subsides to whimpers as Eleanor walks around the nursery, swaying gently. She examines the space with new eyes, seeing things that need to change. The heavy curtains must go, replaced with lighter fabric that allows sunlight. The air is too still and stale. Windows must be opened daily, weather permitting. The temperature is too warm. Babies do not need to be kept hot as bread in an oven. Catherine's cries grow more insistent. Eleanor carefully juggles Margaret in one arm, while reaching down to lift Catherine with the other. It is awkward and difficult, but she manages. Both babies settle somewhat when held, though they continue to fuss with hunger. Mrs. Pemberton appears in the doorway, her expression stern. "Eleanor Grant, I have just heard the most extraordinary tale from Nurse Hartley. Please tell me it is not true that you questioned Dr. Blackwell's treatment and caused his dismissal." "It is true, ma'am. The babies were being poisoned with laudanum and I could not stay silent." Mrs. Pemberton's face softens slightly. "The Duke has informed me that you are now the twins' primary nursemaid, and that I am to provide you with whatever assistance you need. This is highly irregular, Eleanor. A scullery maid with no formal training, elevated to such a position. I did not ask for this position, ma'am. I only wanted to help 2 suffering babies. And now you have the Duke's complete confidence and authority." Mrs. Pemberton pulls her small notebook from her apron pocket. "He said you requested this for keeping records?" "Yes, ma'am. If I am to reduce the laudanum safely, every detail must be documented. How much medicine, when it was given, how the babies respond, how much they eat and sleep, everything." Mrs. Pemberton hands over the notebook with what might be respect in her eyes. "You think like a physician, girl. Perhaps that will serve you well, but be warned. Many in this household will resent your sudden rise in station. Nurse Hartley is already spreading poison about you below stairs." "What kind of poison?" "She claims you are a charlatan who manipulated His Grace in his moment of weakness. She says the baby's brief calm was mere coincidence, and that your treatment will kill them. Several of the maids are already calling you the upstart, and placing bets on how long before you are dismissed in disgrace." Eleanor's heart sinks, but she straightens her shoulders. "Let them talk. My concern is these babies, not the opinions of servants who do not know the truth." Spoken bravely, but gossip can be as poisonous as laudanum, Eleanor. It spreads through a household like disease and corrupts everything it touches. You must be careful. Nurse Hartley returns with 2 bottles of warm milk. She hands them to Eleanor without a word, her face a mask of cold fury. "Thank you," Eleanor says, though she knows the courtesy is wasted. She settles into the rocking chair with both babies and manages to arrange them so each can drink from a bottle. It is awkward requiring her to support both their heads while holding both bottles at careful angles, but she accomplishes it. Catherine and Margaret drink hungrily, their small hands waving as they feed. Margaret finishes her entire bottle and immediately begins rooting for more. Catherine drinks about 3/4 of hers before falling asleep mid-feeding, her small mouth going slack around the bottle's nipple. "They need more than this," Eleanor observes. Margaret is still hungry, and these bottles are already larger than standard infant portions. Their bodies are crying out for nourishment after months of being sedated. "You cannot overfeed them," Nurse Hartley says sharply. "Infants have delicate stomachs. Infants who have been starved by medicine need extra food to heal." Eleanor adjusts her hold on Margaret, who is fussing with continued hunger. "Please prepare 2 more bottles, smaller ones. Margaret needs more, and Catherine may want more when she wakes." "I will not. Overfeeding will make them sick, and when they vomit it will be your fault." Eleanor looks up at the woman, and something in her expression must be fierce, because Nurse Hartley actually takes a step back. "You claim to care about these babies' welfare, yet you fight me at every turn. Why? What do you gain from their suffering? I gain nothing, but I will not be party to harming them through ignorance and arrogance. Then observe. Watch what happens when we feed them properly and reduce the poison you have been administering for months. If I am wrong, you will have evidence to present to the Duke. If I am right, these babies will thrive. Either way, the truth will reveal itself. Mrs. Pemberton, who has been watching this exchange silently, clears her throat. I will fetch the additional bottles myself. Nurse Hartley, you may assist me in the kitchen. It is clearly an order, not a request. Nurse Hartley has no choice but to follow the head housekeeper from the nursery, leaving Eleanor alone with the twins once more. The afternoon sun slants through the newly opened curtains, painting golden rectangles on the nursery floor. Catherine sleeps peacefully in Eleanor's arms, while Margaret fights against drowsiness, determined to stay awake despite her exhaustion. Rest, little one, Eleanor whispers to Margaret. Your sister has the right idea. Sleep will help your body heal. But Margaret will not sleep. Her blue eyes stay stubbornly open, tracking movement around the room. Eleanor recognizes this behavior. Her own son had done the same thing, fighting sleep as if afraid of missing something important. Mrs. Pemberton returns with 2 smaller bottles of warm milk. Cook was curious about why the babies suddenly need more food. I told her that Miss Grant is implementing new feeding schedules. That satisfied her for now, but questions will come. Everyone below stairs is talking about what happened today. Let them talk, Eleanor repeats, though she knows the gossip will make her life harder. She carefully adjusts Catherine in one arm and takes a bottle with her free hand, offering it to Margaret. The baby latches on immediately, drinking with desperate intensity. She finishes the entire small bottle in less than 3 minutes and still seems unsatisfied. How can such tiny creatures eat so much? Mrs. Pemberton marvels. They are making up for lost time. The laudanum suppressed their appetites along with everything else. Now that they are truly awake for the first time in months, their bodies know they need nourishment. Eleanor offers Margaret the second bottle, and the baby drinks half before finally surrendering to sleep. Both twins rest in Eleanor's arms, their breathing deep and even, their small bodies relaxed. I have not seen them this peaceful since their birth, Mrs. Pemberton admits quietly. Perhaps you truly have discovered something the physicians missed. I discovered nothing except common sense. No baby should be given opium unless absolutely necessary, and even then, only under the strictest supervision. Dr. Blackwell treated their natural infant fussiness as a disease requiring powerful medicine, and created the very problem he claimed to solve. Mrs. Pemberton nods slowly. What you are saying makes sense, but it contradicts everything Dr. Blackwell told His Grace. Their doctor is well respected throughout Yorkshire. Many families trust him completely. Then many families are trusting a man who does not understand the consequences of his treatments, Eleanor says bluntly. I am no physician, Mrs. Pemberton, but I have eyes to see and a mind that can reason. These babies are suffering from opium dependence, not from any natural illness. You may be right, but proving it will be difficult. When you begin reducing the laudanum, they will suffer. Everyone will see their distress and blame you. I know. But what is the alternative? Continue poisoning them? Watch them grow more dependent on medicine until their tiny bodies cannot function without it? Mrs. Pemberton has no answer. She simply watches Eleanor rock the sleeping twins, her weathered face troubled. I will support you as best I can, the housekeeper finally says, but you must understand the position you are in. You are a scullery maid, barely educated with no formal training, questioning a respected physician and proposing radical changes to the care of the Duke's only children. Many will see you as presumptuous at best, dangerous at worst. And yet, the Duke trusts me because his daughters sleep peacefully in my arms for the first time in months. That trust is not something I asked for, but I will honor it by doing everything in my power to heal Catherine and Margaret. Mrs. Pemberton studies Eleanor with newfound respect. You have courage, girl. Whether that courage is wisdom or foolishness remains to be seen. I will fetch you dinner and arrange for a cot to be brought to the nursery. You cannot care for the twins properly without rest yourself. After Mrs. Pemberton leaves, Eleanor carefully places the sleeping babies back in their cribs. She stands watching them for several long minutes, memorizing the peaceful expressions on their tiny faces. This moment of calm may be the last for many days. When the laudanum reduction begins tomorrow, both babies will suffer through withdrawal. They will cry, shake, sweat, perhaps even vomit. Everyone will see their distress and conclude that Eleanor's treatment is making them worse. But Eleanor has made her choice: short-term suffering to end long-term poisoning. It is the only path forward, no matter how difficult. She opens the notebook Mrs. Pemberton gave her and begins writing the first entry in her careful, simple hand. March 18th, 1873, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Lady Catherine and Lady Margaret both fed well. Margaret drank 1 full bottle plus 1½ small bottles. Catherine drank 3/4 of 1 bottle. Both babies slept peacefully after feeding. No laudanum given since noon. Will monitor closely for signs of distress. The act of writing gives Eleanor a sense of control. Every observation, every change, every response will be documented. When people question her methods, she will have facts to present, not just opinions. As evening approaches, Duke Ashworth returns to the nursery. His step is lighter than before, his expression less haunted. He looks like a man who has glimpsed hope after months of despair. "How are my daughters?" he asks softly, approaching the cribs where both twins continue to sleep. "They are well, Your Grace. Both ate heartily and have been sleeping for nearly 2 hours. 2 hours, the Duke repeats wonderingly. That is more consecutive sleep than they have had in weeks. You have worked a miracle, Miss Grant." "No miracle, Your Grace. Simply removing the poison that was harming them." The Duke's face darkens. "Do you truly believe Dr. Blackwell was poisoning my daughters intentionally?" Eleanor chooses her words carefully. "I believe he meant well but did not understand the consequences of his treatment. Laudanum is powerful medicine, Your Grace. What helps an adult in pain can create terrible dependence in anyone who takes it regularly, especially in someone as small and vulnerable as an infant." 4 months, the Duke says quietly, touching Margaret's hand through the crib bars. 4 months I trusted that man completely. He came highly recommended by the Earl of Somerset, whose own children he treated successfully. How could he have been so wrong? Perhaps the Earl's children had different ailments that required different treatments. Perhaps Dr. Blackwell has used laudanum successfully with older children and assumed it would work the same with infants. I cannot speak to his intentions, Your Grace. I only know that your daughters suffer from dependence on the medicine he prescribed. Duke Ashworth moves to the window and looks out over his estate. The sun is setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. "My wife died bringing these babies into the world. Her last words to me were, 'Promise you will keep them safe.' I have failed that promise every day for 4 months. You did what you believed was best. You consulted physicians, followed their advice, sought help from those with more knowledge than yourself. That is not failure. That is the action of a devoted father. A devoted father would have seen that something was wrong. A devoted father would have questioned more, demanded better answers, trusted his own instincts instead of deferring to supposed experts." Eleanor sets down her notebook and approaches the Duke, careful to maintain proper distance while still offering comfort. "Your Grace, you were grieving. You had lost your wife and gained 2 daughters in the same terrible moment. You were exhausted, overwhelmed and desperate for help. Dr. Blackwell offered solutions that seemed reasonable. You cannot blame yourself for trusting him." The Duke turns from the window, and Eleanor sees tears tracking down his face. She would have known what to do. "My wife had such instincts about people, about truth. She always saw through pretense to the reality beneath. If she had lived, she would have questioned Dr. Blackwell's treatment. She would have protected our daughters as I failed to protect them. You did not fail them. They are alive, they are sleeping peacefully, and now we know what must be done to help them heal. That is not failure. That is the beginning of success." Duke Ashworth wipes his eyes with the back of his hand, a gesture so simple and human that Eleanor's heart aches for him. He is not just a nobleman with power and wealth. He is a widower, a grieving husband, a frightened father trying desperately to do right by the children his beloved wife died to deliver. "Miss Grant, I must ask you something frankly. Are you certain about your theory? Certain enough to stake my daughters' lives on it?" Eleanor meets his gaze without flinching. "I am certain, Your Grace, not because I'm a physician or because I have medical training, but because I have watched the pattern. The babies cry most when they have not had laudanum for several hours. They calm briefly after receiving it, then grow agitated again. That is not the pattern of illness being treated. That is the pattern of dependence being fed. And when you reduce the medicine, what will happen? They will suffer, Your Grace, I will not lie to you about that. When we reduce the laudanum, their bodies will react badly. They may cry more, they may shake, they may vomit. For several days, perhaps a week or more, they will seem worse rather than better, but that suffering will have an end. If we continue giving them the medicine, the dependence will only grow stronger, and they will never be free of it. Duke Ashworth absorbs this information silently. Outside, the last rays of sunlight fade, and lamplighters begin their evening work throughout the estate. How will you do it? The reduction. Eleanor retrieves her notebook and shows him the plan she has been developing. We are currently at 3 drops 4 times daily, 12 drops total. Tomorrow we reduce to 11 drops total, spread across the 4 doses. The day after, 10 drops, and so on until they are taking none at all. It will take nearly 2 weeks, but reducing gradually should minimize the worst effects. Should minimize, but you cannot guarantee it. No one can guarantee anything, Your Grace. Medicine is not an exact science and every person responds differently, but I believe this approach gives your daughters the best chance at a healthy life, free from dependence on poison. The Duke studies the notebook for a long moment, then nods decisively. Very well. We proceed with your plan. But Miss Grant, I must be clear about something. If my daughters suffer, if they seem to be in genuine danger, I will not hesitate to call for another physician. I trust you, but my first duty is to Catherine and Margaret's immediate safety. I would expect nothing less, Your Grace, and I agree completely. If they show signs of serious distress beyond normal withdrawal symptoms, we must seek additional help. I am not so proud that I would risk their lives to prove my theory correct. This answer seems to satisfy him. He spends another few minutes watching his sleeping daughters, then quietly leaves the nursery. Eleanor is alone with the twins when Nurse Hartley returns. The woman's expression is carefully neutral now, but her eyes hold cold calculation. The other servants are taking bets on how long you will last, Nurse Hartley says conversationally, as if discussing the weather. Most give you 3 days before His Grace realizes his mistake and sends you back to the scullery. Some are more generous and say a week. And what is your wager? Eleanor asks, refusing to be baited. I have wagered nothing. I have no need to gamble when I already know the outcome. You will fail. These babies will suffer, and I will be here to resume proper care when your foolish experiment ends in disaster. You seem very confident that I will fail. One might almost think you want me to fail. Nurse Hartley's smile does not reach her eyes. I want what is best for Lady Catherine and Lady Margaret. If you succeed in helping them, I will gladly admit I was wrong. But I have been a nurse for 15 years, girl. I have seen many well-meaning people with no training attempt to treat the sick, and I have seen the damage they cause. You are playing with lives you do not understand. I am not playing at anything. I am trying to save 2 babies from a treatment that is harming them. So you claim. But when they begin screaming tomorrow, when they shake and vomit and cry for hours on end, everyone will see that your treatment is worse than the disease. Eleanor turns to face Nurse Hartley directly. Why do you speak as if you want that to happen? What do you gain from their suffering? The woman's mask slips for just a moment, and Eleanor sees something ugly beneath. Resentment, wounded pride, the fury of someone whose authority has been challenged and found wanting. I gain nothing, Nurse Hartley says coldly, but neither do I appreciate being humiliated by a common scullery maid who thinks she knows better than trained professionals. Dr. Blackwell is a respected physician. You are nobody. Yet the Duke chose to believe you over him, over me, over everyone with actual knowledge and experience. When you fail, perhaps His Grace will learn that there are reasons why society elevates some people and keeps others in their proper place. The truth is finally spoken. This is not about the baby's welfare. This is about class, about status, about a certified nurse being undermined by someone she considers beneath her station. The Duke elevated me because I helped his daughters when no one else could. If that offends your sense of social order, I am truly sorry. But I will not apologize for caring more about 2 suffering babies than about maintaining proper hierarchy. Before Nurse Hartley can respond, Margaret begins to whimper in her crib. The sound is soft, uncertain, as if the baby is not fully awake but sliding toward wakefulness. Eleanor moves to the crib immediately. Margaret's little face scrunches up, and her arms flail slightly. These are the first signs that she will soon need feeding or comfort. She is waking, Nurse Hartley observes unnecessarily. It has been nearly 3 hours since the last dose of laudanum. She should receive more now. She should receive mother's milk or formula, not poison. Eleanor corrects. Please prepare a bottle while I attend to her. You are making a mistake. Then it is my mistake to make. Nurse Hartley leaves to prepare the bottle, and Eleanor gently lifts Margaret from her crib. The baby's whimpering increases, but Eleanor recognizes this as normal infant fussiness, not the desperate crying that characterized the twins' distress before. Shh, little one, shh. We are going to help you feel better, I promise. Margaret's eyes open briefly, unfocused and confused in the way of very young babies. She roots against Eleanor's shoulder, seeking food or comfort, or simply the reassurance of being held. Catherine stirs in her crib but does not wake. Eleanor watches her carefully, noting how different this sleep seems from the drugged stupor that Dr. Blackwell's treatment produced. This is genuine rest, the natural sleep of a healthy infant. When Nurse Hartley returns with the bottle, Margaret drinks eagerly. She empties the entire contents in less than 5 minutes and still seems hungry. She wants more, Eleanor says. She just ate 3 hours ago, far more than a typical infant meal. Her stomach cannot hold more. Her body is healing and needs additional nourishment. Please prepare another bottle. The standoff lasts several seconds before Nurse Hartley finally complies, her movements sharp with suppressed anger. When she returns with the second bottle, Margaret drinks half before falling back asleep in Eleanor's arms. You are overfeeding them, Nurse Hartley warns. When they vomit later, remember that I cautioned you against this. But Eleanor's instincts tell her she is right. These babies have been sedated for months, their natural hunger suppressed by laudanum. Now that they are truly awake, their bodies are crying out for the nutrition they have been denied. The evening passes quietly. Duke Ashworth returns twice more to check on his daughters, each time marveling at how peacefully they sleep. Mrs. Pemberton brings Eleanor dinner on a tray and sets up a small cot in the corner of the nursery. You should rest when you can, the housekeeper advises. Tomorrow will be difficult. Tomorrow we begin the reduction, Eleanor confirms. And yes, it will be very difficult indeed. That night, Eleanor sleeps in her clothes on the narrow cot, waking every 2 hours when one or both twins need feeding or comfort. But even these frequent wakings feel different from the constant anguished crying that preceded them. These are normal infant needs, not the desperate distress of babies in withdrawal. As dawn breaks on March 19th, Eleanor knows the real test begins. Today she will reduce the laudanum for the first time, and everyone will be watching to see if her theory holds, or if she has made a terrible mistake that will cost 2 innocent lives. She rises from the cot and performs her morning ablutions in the small washroom adjoining the nursery. Her reflection in the mirror shows a young woman with dark circles under her eyes and hair that needs proper brushing, but her expression is determined. Both twins are still sleeping when Nurse Hartley arrives at 7 o'clock sharp, her face set in lines of cold anticipation. Well, Miss Grant, shall we begin your grand experiment? Or have you reconsidered during the night and decided to resume proper medical treatment? We begin the reduction as planned, Eleanor says firmly. Today the total dosage drops from 12 drops to 11. I will administer the first dose myself, immediately after the twins wake and are fed. How convenient that you will control the dosing. When they suffer, no one can prove whether you followed your own plan or made things worse through incompetence. Eleanor retrieves the leather journal where Nurse Hartley has been recording the medicine doses. Then we shall both sign each entry, confirming the exact amount given and the time. You will witness every dose I administer, and I will witness every dose you administer. There will be no question about what was given or when. This proposal clearly surprises Nurse Hartley, who cannot object without seeming like she has something to hide. Very well. But when these babies suffer from your reduced treatment, my signature will prove that I followed your instructions against my better judgment. Catherine wakes first, her soft cries immediately rousing her sister. Eleanor tends to them both, changing diapers and preparing bottles with practiced efficiency. Both babies eat well, though not quite as heartily as yesterday. When they finish, Eleanor carefully measures the reduced laudanum dose. 11 drops instead of 12 does not seem like much of a change, but Eleanor knows that every drop matters when dealing with substances this powerful. She divides the 11 drops across the 4 daily doses as evenly as possible. 3 drops, 3 drops, 3 drops, 2 drops. The morning dose is 3 drops, Eleanor announces, showing the dropper to Nurse Hartley. Please confirm. Nurse Hartley examines the dropper carefully. 3 drops, she confirms. Eleanor administers the dose to Catherine first, mixing it into a small amount of milk. The baby drinks without fuss. Then Margaret receives the same, her tiny mouth working reflexively as she swallows. Both women watch the twins carefully for the next hour. At first, nothing seems different. The babies are awake and alert, looking around the nursery with the unfocused curiosity of infants. But as the hour approaches its end, subtle changes begin. Catherine starts to fuss. Not the terrible anguished crying of before, but a restless whimpering that gradually increases in volume. Her little arms and legs move more than usual, and her face begins to scrunch up in discomfort. "It is beginning," Nurse Hartley observes with barely concealed satisfaction. "The withdrawal symptoms you predicted." Margaret joins her sisters fussing within minutes. Both babies grow increasingly agitated, their movements becoming more jerky and uncoordinated. Eleanor lifts Catherine from her crib and begins walking the nursery floor, swaying gently and humming the same lullaby she used yesterday. The baby calms somewhat in her arms, but the distress does not disappear entirely. Catherine's small body trembles, and she makes small sounds of discomfort between whimpers. "This is only the first morning," Eleanor says quietly. "It will get worse before it gets better." "How much worse?" Nurse Hartley asks, and there is something almost eager in her tone. "I do not know exactly, but we will document everything and adjust the plan if necessary." The morning progresses slowly. Both twins cycle between periods of fussing and brief respites when they are held and comforted. They eat less than yesterday, and when they do sleep, it is fitful and brief. Duke Ashworth arrives at mid-morning to check on his daughters. His face falls when he sees their distress. "They seem worse than yesterday," he observes, unable to hide his concern. Eleanor will not lie to him. "Yes, Your Grace. We reduced the laudanum this morning, and their bodies are reacting to the change. This is what I predicted would happen. They are suffering. Yes, but it is temporary suffering that will lead to healing, not ongoing suffering that will lead to greater dependence." The Duke watches Catherine crying in Eleanor's arms, and his expression is anguished. "How long will this last?" "I cannot say with certainty. Perhaps several days, perhaps a week. But each day we will reduce the medicine a little more, and each day they will be one step closer to freedom from it. And if they cannot endure it, if the suffering becomes too great," Eleanor meets his eyes directly, "then we will slow the reduction or seek advice from another physician. I am confident in my theory, Your Grace, but I am not so arrogant as to ignore evidence that I am wrong." Duke Ashworth nods slowly. "Very well, but I will be checking on them frequently today. If their distress increases beyond what seems reasonable, we will reconsider the plan." After he leaves, Nurse Hartley smirks. "He is already doubting you. By tomorrow you will be back in the scullery where you belong." But Eleanor refuses to be baited. She focuses entirely on the twins, holding them, comforting them, feeding them when they will eat, documenting every detail in her notebook. By afternoon, both babies have developed slight tremors, not severe, but noticeable. Their little hands shake when they reach for things, and their bodies twitch periodically even when they are held securely. Eleanor records everything. 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Both babies showing mild tremors in hands and arms. Catherine vomited once after feeding small amount. Margaret eating slightly less than yesterday, but still taking adequate nourishment. Both babies crying more than yesterday, but less than before treatment began. Afternoon dose of laudanum given at 1 o'clock, 3 drops total. Witnessed and confirmed by Nurse Hartley. Mrs. Pemberton visits in mid-afternoon, her face grave. The entire household is talking about the baby's distress. Some are saying you are making them worse. Others are defending you, saying withdrawal must be endured to achieve healing. "What does Mrs. Pemberton believe?" Eleanor asks. The housekeeper considers the question carefully. "I believe you are braver than I would be in your position. Whether that bravery is justified remains to be seen." The day stretches endlessly. Evening comes, bringing no relief. Both twins are exhausted, but cannot sleep for more than 30 minutes at a time. They wake, crying, their small bodies rigid with discomfort, and Eleanor walks the floor with them hour after hour. Duke Ashworth returns at 8 o'clock. His face shows the strain of watching his daughters suffer after yesterday's brief respite. "Miss Grant, I must ask you honestly, are you certain this is the right path? Watching them like this is torture." Eleanor's own exhaustion makes her voice sharper than she intends. "And watching them suffer from opium dependence for the rest of their lives would be better. Your Grace, I understand your pain. Every instinct tells you to stop their suffering immediately. But the only way to truly help them is to endure these difficult days so they can have healthy years ahead. You speak of years ahead, but what if they do not survive these difficult days? The question hangs in the air like poison. Eleanor swallows hard before answering. If I believed they were in genuine danger, I would tell you immediately and seek additional help. But what you are seeing, Your Grace, is not life-threatening. It is uncomfortable. It is distressing to watch, but it is not fatal. Their bodies are adjusting to lower levels of laudanum, nothing more. You cannot be certain of that. You have no medical training. I have eyes to see and common sense to guide me. Their color is good. Their breathing is strong. They are eating adequately, if not heartily. These are not signs of mortal danger. These are signs of withdrawal, exactly as I predicted. Duke Ashworth runs his hands through his hair in a gesture of pure frustration. My wife would know what to do. She always knew what to do. Eleanor's voice softens. Your wife would want her daughters to be healthy and free from dependence on medicine. That is what we are working toward, Your Grace. It is hard to see them suffer now, but this suffering has purpose and end. The Duke stays for another hour, holding Catherine while Eleanor holds Margaret. Both babies eventually fall into fitful sleep, and he carefully places his daughter back in her crib. Continue with your plan, Miss Grant, but if tomorrow is not better than today, we will need to reconsider. After he leaves, Nurse Hartley speaks for the first time in hours. He is losing faith in you. By tomorrow night, you will be dismissed, and I will resume proper care of these children. Eleanor is too tired to argue. She simply turns back to the notebook and records the evening's events in meticulous detail. That night is the worst yet. Both twins wake every hour, crying with discomfort. Eleanor walks the floor with them, her arms aching, her eyes burning with exhaustion. The cot in the corner might as well not exist. She has no opportunity to use it. At 3 in the morning, with both babies finally sleeping after an hour of concentrated effort to soothe them, Eleanor allows herself to sit in the rocking chair. Her body is so tired that even the hard wooden seat feels comfortable. She closes her eyes for just a moment, and when she opens them again, dawn light is streaming through the windows. Both babies are awake and crying in their cribs, and Nurse Hartley stands in the doorway with an expression of cold triumph. You fell asleep at your post, the nurse says. How very professional. The Duke will hear about this, I assure you. Eleanor jerks fully awake and immediately goes to the cribs. Both twins need changing and feeding, and she attends to them with hands that shake from exhaustion. Yes, tell the Duke, Eleanor says wearily. Tell him that I worked through the entire night caring for his daughters and finally rested for what appears to have been about 20 minutes. I am sure he will be horrified that I am human and require occasional sleep. The second day of withdrawal is harder than the first. Both babies cry more, eat less, and develop rashes on their skin from the sweating and tremors. Eleanor documents everything while fighting her own exhaustion and the growing certainty that perhaps Nurse Hartley is right. Perhaps she has made a terrible mistake. Duke Ashworth visits 3 times during the morning alone. Each time, his face grows more troubled. They seem worse, Miss Grant. Significantly worse. Yes, Your Grace. Withdrawal often gets harder before it gets better. But look at their color, their breathing, their responses. They are not in danger. They are simply uncomfortable. Uncomfortable? They are in agony. No, Your Grace, they are not. Agony is what they experienced before. When their bodies were crying out for medicine they should never have been given. This is discomfort as their systems adjust. It looks terrible, and it feels terrible to watch, but it is not the same as true suffering. But even as Eleanor says these words, doubt creeps into her heart. What if she is wrong? What if she is causing harm instead of healing? What if Nurse Hartley and Dr. Blackwell were right all along, and she is nothing but an arrogant scullery maid playing with lives she does not understand? By noon on the second day, Eleanor is running on pure determination. She has not slept more than those 20 minutes since beginning the withdrawal process. She has eaten only what Mrs. Pemberton forces upon her. Her entire world has narrowed to 2 crying babies and the desperate hope that she is right about their treatment. Mrs. Pemberton arrives with a lunch tray and takes one look at Eleanor's face. Child, you are going to collapse. You must rest. I cannot rest while they suffer. You cannot help them if you fall unconscious from exhaustion. I will watch the twins for 2 hours while you sleep. It is not a request, Eleanor. It is an order. Too tired to argue, Eleanor allows herself to be guided to the cot. She falls asleep before her head fully touches the pillow. She wakes 2 hours later to the sound of raised voices. Duke Ashworth and Nurse Hartley are in the nursery, and their conversation is heated. "I am telling you, Your Grace, this treatment is making them worse," Nurse Hartley insists. 2 days of steadily increasing distress. Any reasonable person can see that Miss Grant's theory is wrong. "And yet she predicted this exact response," the Duke argues, though his voice lacks conviction. "She said they would seem worse before improving." "Anyone can make vague predictions and then claim they were correct. Your Grace, I have been a nurse for 15 years. I know the difference between healing and harm. These babies are being harmed." Eleanor sits up on the cot, her mind still foggy with exhaustion. Mrs. Pemberton stands near the cribs, holding Margaret and looking deeply uncomfortable with the argument happening around her. "Miss Grant has awakened," Mrs. Pemberton announces, clearly relieved to have Eleanor available to defend herself. Duke Ashworth turns to Eleanor with an expression that breaks her heart. He looks like a man at the end of his endurance, desperate for someone to tell him what to do. "Miss Grant, I must hear from you honestly. Is their suffering necessary, or have we made a mistake?" Eleanor forces herself to stand, though her legs shake with exhaustion. She approaches the Duke and speaks with all the conviction she can muster. "Your Grace, I understand your doubt. I would doubt too if I were in your position, but I ask you to remember what brought us to this point. Your daughters cried for 4 months straight under Dr. Blackwell's care. They are now on their 2nd day of withdrawal, and yes, they are uncomfortable, but compare their current state to their state 1 week ago. They are eating, they are sleeping in brief periods, they are responding to comfort. 1 week ago, nothing helped them. Nothing. 1 week ago they were receiving proper medical treatment," Nurse Hartley interjects. "Now they are being subjected to an experiment by someone with no qualifications whatsoever. 1 week ago they were being poisoned," Eleanor shoots back, her exhaustion making her bold. "Your proper medical treatment created the very dependence you now call natural illness." Duke Ashworth holds up his hand for silence. "Enough. I need to think. I need to consider what is best for my daughters without people shouting conflicting advice at me." He walks to the window and stares out at the estate grounds. The silence in the nursery is broken only by Margaret's soft whimpering in Mrs. Pemberton's arms. After what feels like an eternity, Duke Ashworth speaks without turning from the window. "How much longer, Miss Grant? If we continue on this path, how much longer until we see improvement?" Eleanor chooses her words carefully. "We are reducing 1 drop per day. At this rate, they will be completely free of laudanum in 10 more days, but improvement should begin to show before then. Perhaps in 3 or 4 more days, when the amount of medicine in their system has decreased significantly. 3 or 4 more days of watching them suffer like this? Yes, Your Grace. 3 or 4 more days of discomfort that leads to a lifetime of health." The Duke finally turns from the window. His decision is written on his face before he speaks. We continue. "But Miss Grant, if they are not showing clear improvement by Friday, we will seek another physician's opinion. That gives you 3 more days to prove your theory correct." Nurse Hartley's face flushes with anger. "Your Grace, I must protest." "Your protest is noted and dismissed, Nurse Hartley. You may leave us now." The nurse stalks from the nursery, her fury evident in every step. After she is gone, Duke Ashworth approaches Eleanor directly. "I am trusting you with my daughters' lives, my dead wife's children, the most precious things in my world. Do not make me regret that trust." "I will not, Your Grace. I swear it on my own dead child's memory." The Duke's expression softens slightly at this. He nods once, then leaves the nursery. Mrs. Pemberton releases a long breath. "Well, you have your 3 days. Let us pray they are sufficient." The afternoon of the 2nd day brings no relief. Both twins continue cycling between crying, fitful sleep, and periods of trembling discomfort. Eleanor administers the reduced laudanum doses precisely as scheduled, 3 drops at noon, 3 drops at 6 in the evening. She documents everything in the notebook with increasing detail, knowing that this record may be her only defense if the treatment fails. 2nd day of withdrawal, total daily laudanum reduced to 10 drops, Catherine showing increased tremors, but eating adequate amounts. Margaret more agitated, but color remains good. Both babies cry more than 1st day, but less than before treatment began. Rashes on skin improving with frequent washing and fresh air from open windows. That night is marginally better than the first. The twins wake every 2 hours instead of every hour, and when they wake they can be soothed back to sleep within 30 minutes, instead of requiring an hour or more of constant walking and rocking. Eleanor clings to these small improvements like a drowning woman clings to floating debris. They are not much, but they are something. Evidence that perhaps, just perhaps, her theory is correct. On the morning of the third day, Eleanor wakes after a solid 3-hour stretch of sleep and immediately checks on the twins. Both are awake in their cribs, but neither is crying. Catherine is looking at her own hand, waving it back and forth as if fascinated by its movement. Margaret is sucking on her fist, a normal, self-soothing behavior that Eleanor has not seen her display before. "Good morning, little ones," Eleanor says softly, approaching the cribs. "How are we today?" Catherine turns her head at the sound of Eleanor's voice and makes a small cooing noise. Not a cry, not a whimper, but an actual baby sound of contentment. Eleanor's heart leaps with hope. She gently lifts Catherine from the crib, and the baby does not immediately begin crying. Instead, she settles against Eleanor's shoulder with only a few small, fussy sounds. Margaret receives the same treatment, and though she fusses more than her sister, it is normal infant fussing, not the anguished distress of withdrawal. When Nurse Hartley arrives at 7, she stops in the doorway and stares. They are quiet. Yes, they had a better night, and this morning they seem calmer. Nurse Hartley's expression is impossible to read. Is that disappointment? Relief? A mixture of both? It is only the third day. Too early to declare victory. I declare nothing except observation. They are better than yesterday, that is fact, not opinion. The morning feeding goes more smoothly than any since the withdrawal began. Both babies eat heartily, finishing their entire bottles and asking for more. The tremors are still present but less severe. The crying comes in short bursts instead of sustained periods. Duke Ashworth arrives at 9 o'clock, and Eleanor can see from his face that he has had another sleepless night. But when he sees his daughters, quiet and alert in their cribs, his expression transforms. "They are better," he breathes. "They truly are better. It is only the third day, Your Grace. We must not assume too much too quickly. But yes, they do seem improved." The Duke lifts Catherine from her crib and holds her with such tenderness that Eleanor's eyes sting with tears. "My darling girl, my sweet Catherine, you are going to be well. You and your sister both." Catherine makes another small cooing sound and reaches up to touch her father's face with her tiny hand. It is such a normal gesture, such an everyday baby behavior, that it carries the weight of a miracle. "She is engaging with me," the Duke marvels. "For the first time since birth, she is actually looking at me and responding." Margaret, not to be left out, begins to fuss in her crib. Eleanor picks her up, and the baby calms immediately, her blue eyes focusing on Eleanor's face with increasing clarity. "Their eyes are clearer," Eleanor observes, "less glazed, more focused. That is another sign that the laudanum is leaving their systems." Duke Ashworth spends the entire morning in the nursery, holding his daughters, talking to them, watching their every movement with the intensity of a man making up for lost time. Eleanor uses the opportunity to catch up on sleep, taking advantage of his presence to rest for 2 precious hours while he watches over Catherine and Margaret. When she wakes, Nurse Hartley has returned and is speaking to the Duke in low tones near the window. Eleanor catches only fragments of the conversation, but the words temporary improvement and false hope come through clearly. "Nurse Hartley believes this improvement may be temporary," the Duke says when he notices Eleanor is awake. "She says withdrawal symptoms often come in waves, with periods of improvement followed by periods of increased distress." Eleanor stands and approaches them both. "That can be true, Your Grace. Withdrawal is not a straight line from sickness to health. There will be good days and bad days, but the overall trajectory should be toward improvement. Each day the total amount of laudanum decreases, and each day their bodies adjust a little more. The bad periods should become shorter and less severe as we progress." "Should," Nurse Hartley repeats pointedly. "You speak in probabilities and guesses, not certainties." "Because there are no certainties in medicine," Eleanor responds. "Even trained physicians can only work with probabilities. The difference is that I admit my uncertainty, while others hide theirs behind credentials and authority." Duke Ashworth studies both women for a long moment. "You both care for my daughters in your own way. Nurse Hartley, you have experience and training. Miss Grant, you have instinct and observation. I have chosen to follow Miss Grant's approach, and I will continue to do so until Friday, as I promised. But Nurse Hartley, I ask that you support this effort rather than undermine it. Can you do that? Nurse Hartley's jaw clenches, but she curtsies stiffly. As your grace commands. The rest of the third day continues the pattern of improvement. The twins eat well, sleep for longer stretches, and cry less frequently. Their tremors diminish to occasional shakes rather than constant movement. The rashes on their skin fade as their sweating decreases. Eleanor reduces the laudanum to 9 drops total for the day, and while both babies show some increased fussiness after each dose reduction, it is manageable. Nothing like the terrible distress of the first 2 days. That night, Eleanor sleeps for 5 consecutive hours, waking only when Catherine cries for her midnight feeding. Margaret sleeps through her sister's crying, which Eleanor notes in the journal as another positive sign. The baby's sleep is becoming deeper and more natural. On the 4th morning, Duke Ashworth arrives before Eleanor has finished her own breakfast. His face is animated with excitement rather than worry. I heard Catherine laugh, he says without preamble. Last night after you went to sleep, I came to check on them. Catherine was awake, and when I made faces at her, she laughed. It was small, barely more than a gurgle, but it was definitely a laugh. My daughters are 4 months old, and that was the first time I have heard either of them make a happy sound. Eleanor's heart swells with relief and joy. Baby laughter at 4 months is exactly what should happen in normal development. That Catherine is beginning to show appropriate responses means the laudanum's effects are truly diminishing. That is wonderful news, Your Grace. It is more than wonderful. It is proof that you were right. He moves to the cribs, where both babies are just waking. My daughters are coming back to life. I can see it in their eyes, hear it in their sounds. They are becoming the babies they should have been from birth. The 4th day passes with continued improvement. Eleanor reduces the laudanum to 8 drops total. There is some fussing when the doses are reduced, but nothing that cannot be managed with holding, rocking, and patient comfort. Mrs. Pemberton visits in the afternoon with tea and biscuits. She sits with Eleanor while the twins sleep and speaks quietly. The household is beginning to change its opinion of you. At first, many thought you were presumptuous and foolish. But now, seeing the babies improve, people are starting to whisper that perhaps you have healing gifts. Eleanor shakes her head firmly. I have no healing gifts. I simply observed a pattern and acted on common sense. Anyone could have done the same if they had looked past the authority of credentials to see the reality in front of them. That is precisely what makes you remarkable, child. Most people cannot see past authority. They trust the title more than the evidence of their own eyes. You did not. I could not afford to. I have no title, no credentials, nothing to fall back on except my observations. If I am wrong, I am just a foolish scullery maid. But if I am right, 2 babies live healthy lives instead of being trapped in dependence on poison. Mrs. Pemberton pats Eleanor's hand with maternal affection. You are more than a scullery maid now, whether you claim the title or not. The Duke has been telling visitors that his daughter's recovery is thanks to your insight and dedication. Your position in this household has changed permanently. This thought troubles Eleanor more than comforts her. She did not seek elevation in status. She only wanted to help suffering babies. But she knows Mrs. Pemberton is right. Whether she wants it or not, her life has changed. She can never go back to being just another anonymous servant. On the 5th morning, Eleanor wakes to complete silence in the nursery. For a heart-stopping moment, she fears the worst. But when she rushes to the cribs, both babies are sleeping peacefully, their chests rising and falling with healthy breaths. They slept through the entire night, 7 hours without waking even once. Eleanor checks them carefully to ensure they are well. Both have good color, normal breathing, no fever or distress. They simply slept deeply for the first time in their lives. When they wake naturally an hour later, both babies are alert and engaged. Catherine waves her arms and makes happy gurgling sounds. Margaret focuses on Eleanor's face and follows her movement with clear, bright eyes. The laudanum reduction continues. 7 drops total for day 5, 6 drops for day 6. Each day brings visible improvement. The twins eat heartily, sleep well, and begin to show normal infant development. They track movement with their eyes, grasp at objects placed in their hands, and make increasing varieties of sounds beyond just crying. Duke Ashworth is transformed by his daughter's recovery. The haunted, exhausted man of a week ago is replaced by a proud father who spends every possible moment in the nursery. He holds his babies, talks to them, sings to them, make silly faces that draw their infant laughter. I have missed 4 months of their lives, he tells Eleanor one afternoon. 4 months when I should have been bonding with them, enjoying them, watching them grow. Instead, I was watching them suffer and feeling helpless. I can never get that time back. No, Your Grace, but you have all the time ahead. They are healthy now, and becoming healthier each day. That is what matters. By the 7th day, the twins are down to 5 drops of laudanum total. Their improvement is so dramatic that even Nurse Hartley can no longer deny it. The woman maintains her cold demeanor toward Eleanor, but she has stopped predicting failure. On the 8th day, Duke Ashworth makes an announcement that shocks the entire household. I am hosting a small dinner party Friday evening to celebrate my daughter's recovery. I want all the local gentry to see that Catherine and Margaret are thriving, and I want to publicly acknowledge the person responsible for their healing. Eleanor's stomach drops. Your Grace, that is not necessary. I did only what anyone with eyes could see needed doing. You did what trained physicians and experienced nurses failed to do. You saved my daughters from a lifetime of dependence on opium. That deserves recognition. But, Your Grace, I am a scullery maid. Having me at a dinner party with gentry will be highly inappropriate. Duke Ashworth's expression becomes stern. You are no longer a scullery maid, Miss Grant. You are my daughter's nursemaid, and the woman to whom I owe an unpayable debt. You will attend the dinner party, and you will accept the gratitude that is rightfully yours. Eleanor knows there is no point in arguing further. When a duke gives a command, even if it is phrased as an invitation, it must be obeyed. Mrs. Pemberton takes Eleanor's measurements that afternoon for a proper dress. You cannot attend a dinner party in servant's clothing, the housekeeper says practically. His Grace has authorized the expense of appropriate attire. The next 3 days pass in a blur of continued improvement for the twins and increasing anxiety for Eleanor. The laudanum doses drop to 4 drops on day 9, 3 drops on day 10, 2 drops on day 11. Each reduction brings minimal distress. The babies are so much healthier now that their bodies can tolerate the decreases, with only brief periods of fussiness. By Thursday evening, Eleanor administers the final single drop of laudanum. Tomorrow, for the first time in their lives, Catherine and Margaret will wake completely free from opium. This is the last dose, Eleanor tells the sleeping babies as she records the entry in her journal. Tomorrow you begin your lives as healthy, normal infants, everything you should have been from birth. Friday morning arrives with bright sunshine and warm spring air. Eleanor wakes early and immediately checks the twins. Both are sleeping peacefully, and when they wake naturally half an hour later, they are alert, happy, and engaging. No laudanum, not a single drop, and they are perfectly well. Eleanor feeds them, changes them, and settles them in their cribs with soft toys to look at and grasp. They play quietly, making baby sounds and waving their arms and legs with uncoordinated enthusiasm. Duke Ashworth arrives at 8 and stands watching his daughters with visible emotion. They are completely free of it. Yes, Your Grace. As of last night's final dose, they have no more laudanum in their treatment, and as you can see, they are thriving. The Duke lifts Catherine from her crib and holds her high, making her laugh with delight. My darling girl, my sweet, perfect girl, you are healthy, you and your sister both. He turns to Eleanor with tears streaming down his face. Miss Grant, I can never adequately express what you have done for my family. You gave me back my daughters. You gave them back their lives. Eleanor feels her own eyes filling. I only did what needed doing, Your Grace. You did what no one else could or would do. Tonight, I want the world to know it. The dinner party that evening is a modest affair by aristocratic standards. 20 guests from the local gentry, a fine meal prepared by the household cook, and conversation in the drawing room afterward. Eleanor attends wearing a simple but elegant blue dress that Mrs. Pemberton procured, her hair arranged by one of the ladies' maids. She feels completely out of place among the well-dressed gentry, with their practiced manners and easy conversation about topics she knows nothing about. But Duke Ashworth keeps her near his side and introduces her to everyone as Miss Eleanor Grant, the woman who saved my daughters' lives. The story of what happened spreads through the drawing room like wildfire. Eleanor finds herself answering questions from curious ladies and skeptical gentlemen about her methods and reasoning. You question Dr. Blackwell's treatment based on what evidence? Lord Pemberton asks, with barely concealed condescension. Based on observation, my lord. The babies cried most when they had not received laudanum for several hours. They calmed briefly after receiving it, then grew agitated again. That is the pattern of dependence, not the pattern of illness being treated. And yet you have no medical training whatsoever? No, my lord, but I have eyes to see and a mind to reason. Those tools are available to everyone, regardless of education or station. Lady Pemberton, the lord's wife, gives Eleanor a look of grudging respect. Bold words from a former scullery maid, but then again the results speak for themselves. The twins are healthy now, are they not, Duke Ashworth? Completely healthy, the Duke confirms. Come, let me show you all. He leads the entire party upstairs to the nursery, where Catherine and Margaret are being watched by a temporary nurse hired for the evening. Both babies are awake and playing quietly in their cribs. The assembled gentry gather around the cribs, making appropriate noises of admiration and delight. Eleanor watches from the doorway, uncomfortable with the attention, but pleased to see the twins displaying normal, healthy infant behavior. They are beautiful, Lady Somerset declares, and so alert and happy. When we visited a month ago, they were crying constantly. The transformation is remarkable. The transformation is thanks to Miss Grant, Duke Ashworth says, gesturing for Eleanor to join him by the cribs. She recognized what trained physicians missed. She had the courage to question authority and the dedication to see her treatment through despite considerable opposition. Opposition from whom? Lord Somerset asks. From Dr. Blackwell, from the nurse I had hired, from many in my household who thought it inappropriate for a servant to question medical expertise. But Miss Grant persisted because she knew she was right, and she was. The dinner party continues for another 2 hours, but Eleanor is relieved when it finally ends and the guests depart. She returns to the nursery, changes back into her regular clothing, and spends the night as she has for the past 2 weeks, caring for the twins and documenting their continued progress. The next morning, Duke Ashworth summons her to his study. Eleanor enters nervously, unsure what this formal summons means. "Please sit, Miss Grant," the Duke says, gesturing to a comfortable chair across from his desk. "I have been considering your position in this household." Eleanor's heart sinks. Is this where he tells her that now the crisis is over, she must return to the scullery? "Your Grace, I understand if circumstances require—" He holds up his hand. "Please, let me finish. Your position as my daughter's nursemaid is permanent, for as long as you wish to remain in that role. You have more than earned it, but I have been thinking about something larger." "Larger, Your Grace?" Duke Ashworth leans forward, his expression intense. "You have a gift, Miss Grant. Not a mystical gift, but something perhaps more valuable. The ability to observe clearly and reason soundly, unclouded by assumptions or deference to authority. That gift saved my daughter's lives. I wonder how many other lives it might save if given the opportunity. I do not understand, Your Grace. I want to fund your education. Medical training, if you are willing. There are institutions in London that are beginning to accept female students. It is controversial, certainly, but not impossible. With proper training to supplement your natural abilities, you could help many people." Eleanor stares at him in shock. "Your Grace, I am 23 years old with only basic schooling. Medical training requires years of study. Do you doubt your ability to learn? No, but then the only real question is whether you want to learn. Whether you want to take your gift and develop it into something that could change lives on a scale beyond just my daughter's. The offer is so unexpected, so enormous in its implications, that Eleanor cannot immediately process it. Her, a physician, a woman from the lowest ranks of society, elevated to one of the most respected professions. "I would need to think about this, Your Grace." "Of course. Take all the time you need, but know that my offer is sincere and comes with no strings attached. Even if you decide against medical training, your position here is secure for as long as you want it." Eleanor leaves the study in a daze. The possibility he has dangled before her is both thrilling and terrifying. Could she really become a physician? Could someone like her truly achieve such heights? The answer comes to her while watching the twins that afternoon. Catherine reaches for a toy, and after several attempts manages to grasp it. Her face lights up with triumph at this small accomplishment. If a 4-month-old baby can overcome opium dependence and learn to thrive, surely Eleanor can overcome the obstacles between her current station and medical training. It will be hard, perhaps the hardest thing she has ever attempted. But hard does not mean impossible. She returns to Duke Ashworth's study that evening. "Your Grace, I have considered your offer, and I accept with gratitude and determination. I will work harder than any student they have ever seen. I will not make you regret your faith in me." Duke Ashworth smiles broadly. "I have no doubts, Miss Grant. You have already accomplished the impossible once. I have no doubt you will do so again." The arrangements take several weeks to finalize. Duke Ashworth corresponds with contacts in London and secures Eleanor a place at the London School of Medicine for Women, a controversial new institution founded to provide medical education to female students. The costs are substantial, but he pays them without hesitation. During those weeks, Eleanor continues caring for Catherine and Margaret while beginning preliminary studies. Duke Ashworth's personal physician, Dr. Harrison, is far more progressive than Dr. Blackwell and agrees to tutor Eleanor in basic anatomy and medical theory. "You have good instincts," Dr. Harrison tells her after their third lesson. "Instincts are important, but they must be supported by knowledge. You did the right thing with the twins, but you were also fortunate. Not all situations will be so straightforward. Medical training will give you the tools to handle complexity." Eleanor absorbs this wisdom gratefully. She knows she was right about the laudanum, but she also knows she has much to learn. The twins' case was relatively simple once she identified the core problem. Real medicine will involve far more complexity and ambiguity. In June, 3 months after she first heard the twins crying, Eleanor prepares to leave for London. The separation from Catherine and Margaret is difficult. She has grown to love these babies as if they were her own. "You will visit often," Duke Ashworth assures her, "and when you complete your training, there will always be a place for you here if you wish to return, but I suspect your skills will be needed far beyond Ashworth Manor." On her last day, Eleanor holds both twins and speaks to them softly. "You probably will not remember me when you are older. You are too young to form lasting memories now, but I will remember you always. You changed my life as much as I changed yours." Catherine grasps Eleanor's finger with surprising strength, and Margaret makes a happy gurgling sound. Both babies are healthy, alert, developing normally. They show no signs of their difficult first 4 months. Duke Ashworth insists on providing Eleanor with a generous allowance beyond her tuition and living expenses. "You cannot study effectively if you are worried about money. Consider this not charity, but investment. I am investing in your future and in all the lives you will help." The journey to London takes 2 days by coach. Eleanor uses the time to review the medical texts Dr. Harrison lent her, absorbing information about anatomy, physiology, and basic treatment principles. She knows the path ahead will be difficult. Female medical students face considerable prejudice, and her own background will mark her as an outsider among both the gentry and educated classes. But she has faced difficult circumstances before and prevailed. She will do so again. The London School of Medicine for Women is housed in a modest building in Bloomsbury. Eleanor arrives on a warm July afternoon and is greeted by Miss Sophia Jex Blake, one of the school's founders. "Miss Grant, welcome. Duke Ashworth has written extensively about your case with his daughters. Quite remarkable, really. You demonstrated observational skills and logical reasoning that many trained physicians lack." "Thank you, Miss Jex Blake. I hope to develop those skills further through proper education." "I am certain you will, but I must warn you the path ahead is not easy. We face opposition from the medical establishment, from society, from people who believe women have no place in medicine. You will be insulted, dismissed, and doubted. Can you endure that?" Eleanor thinks of Nurse Hartley's contempt, Dr. Blackwell's condescension, the servants who called her the upstart and bet on her failure. She has already endured doubt and dismissal. She can endure more if it means helping others. "I can endure it, Miss Jex Blake. I have no choice but to endure it, because the alternative is to abandon a calling I have discovered in myself." Miss Jex Blake smiles approvingly. "Then you will do well here. Come, let me show you to your lodgings and introduce you to the other students." The next 4 years are the most challenging of Eleanor's life. The medical curriculum is demanding, requiring long hours of study and practical work. She learns anatomy from cadavers, practices diagnosis on patients at the school's small clinic, and absorbs vast amounts of information about diseases, treatments, and surgical procedures. But the intellectual challenges are not the hardest part. The social challenges are far more difficult. Many male medical students and established physicians treat the female students with open contempt. They disrupt lectures, make crude jokes, and do everything possible to discourage women from pursuing medical education. Eleanor faces additional prejudice due to her working-class background. While most of her fellow students come from respectable middle-class families, her origins as a scullery maid mark her as different. Some fellow students whisper that she must be Duke Ashworth's mistress, that no nobleman would fund a servant's education without expecting something improper in return. These rumors hurt more than the contempt of male physicians. Eleanor has done nothing improper, and Duke Ashworth has been nothing but honorable, but she cannot stop people from believing what they choose to believe. She finds support among a small group of fellow students who share her determination. Together they study late into the night, quiz each other on medical knowledge, and provide encouragement when the obstacles seem insurmountable. "They want us to fail," her friend Margaret Hastings says one evening, after a particularly hostile lecture, where male students threw paper wads and made jeering noises. "They think if they make things difficult enough, we will give up and prove them right about women being unsuited for medicine. Then we will prove them wrong," Eleanor responds firmly. "We will study harder, learn more, and become better physicians than they can imagine." True to her word, Eleanor excels in her studies. She has a natural aptitude for diagnosis, the same observational skills that helped her identify the twins' opium dependence, now serving her in identifying diseases and injuries. Her professors note her particular talent for seeing patterns that others miss. She returns to Ashworth Manor twice per year, always eagerly anticipating reunion with Catherine and Margaret. The twins grow into healthy, bright children who show no effects from their difficult first months. By their second birthday, they are walking, talking, and displaying distinct personalities. Catherine is bold and curious, while Margaret is more thoughtful and cautious. "Do they remember me at all?" Eleanor asks Duke Ashworth during one visit. "They remember you in the way children remember important people from their infancy. Not specific memories, but a sense of comfort and safety. They always run to you when you arrive, do they not?" It is true. Both girls light up when Eleanor visits and follow her around the manor, chattering about their toys and adventures. Eleanor's heart swells with love for these children she helped save. Duke Ashworth has remarried, a kind widow named Lady Beatrice, who treats both Eleanor and the twins with genuine warmth. "You will always be special to this family," Lady Beatrice tells Eleanor. "You saved my stepdaughters' lives before I ever met them. That makes you family in my eyes." In Eleanor's 4th year of medical training, she encounters a case that brings her education full circle. A wealthy merchant brings his 6-month-old son to the school's clinic. The baby cries constantly, sleeps poorly, and cannot be consoled by any normal means. 3 physicians have examined him, the merchant explains desperately. They say he has colic and prescribe laudanum, but the medicine does not seem to help. He cries more, not less. Eleanor's heart begins to race. She examines the baby carefully, noting his dilated pupils, his trembling hands, his excessive sweating. How much laudanum has he been receiving? 2 drops 3 times daily for the past month. The physician said to increase the dose if the crying continued, so we did. Now it is 4 drops 3 times daily. Eleanor feels fury rising in her chest. Another physician creating opium dependence in an infant, just as Dr. Blackwell did with Catherine and Margaret. "Sir, your son does not have colic. He has opium dependence. The laudanum is causing his distress, not treating it." The merchant stares at her. "That is impossible. Dr. Waverley is highly respected. He would never prescribe something harmful. I am certain he means well, but he is wrong. I have seen this exact pattern before in twin babies who nearly died from opium dependence. If you continue giving your son laudanum, he will only grow more dependent and more ill." "You are suggesting I ignore a respected physician's advice and listen to you instead?" Eleanor meets his gaze steadily. "I am suggesting you observe your son's pattern. Does he cry most when he has not received laudanum for several hours? Does he calm briefly after receiving it, then grow agitated again? That is not colic, that is dependence." The merchant is skeptical, but something in Eleanor's voice convinces him to at least consider her words. "What would you have me do?" "Reduce the laudanum gradually over 2 weeks while providing extra comfort and nourishment. His body must learn to function without the medicine. It will be difficult, but on the other side is a healthy child free from poison." Under Eleanor's supervision and with support from Miss Jex Blake, they implement the treatment. Just as with the twins, the baby suffers through withdrawal, but emerges healthy and thriving. The merchant is so grateful, that he writes a letter to the Times praising the London School of Medicine for Women and specifically mentioning Eleanor's diagnostic skills. The letter causes a minor scandal. Conservative physicians denounce Eleanor's treatment as dangerous experimentation. Progressive physicians defend her, pointing to the successful outcome. The debate rages in medical journals for months, but Eleanor does not care about the controversy. She cares only that another baby was saved from unnecessary suffering. In the spring of 1877, 4 years after she first heard the twins crying, Eleanor graduates from the London School of Medicine for Women with honours. Duke Ashworth, Lady Beatrice, and 5-year-old Catherine and Margaret attend the ceremony. "Dr. Grant," the Duke says with obvious pride when she receives her diploma. "It has a fine sound to it." "It does," Eleanor agrees, barely able to believe this moment is real. She, a former scullery maid, is now a qualified physician. After graduation, Eleanor faces the difficult question of where to practice. Many hospitals refuse to hire female physicians. Private practice is possible, but challenging to establish without connections and reputation. Duke Ashworth makes an offer that surprises no one who knows him. "Open your practice in the village near Ashworth Manor. I will fund the building and initial expenses. The village needs a good physician, and you have already proven yourself capable." Eleanor accepts gratefully. Within 6 months, she has a small but thriving practice in the village of Ashworth-on-the-Moor. She treats farmers and merchants, labourers and landowners, anyone who needs medical help regardless of their ability to pay. Her reputation grows steadily. She is known as the physician who listens because she takes time to observe patterns and ask questions instead of rushing to prescribe powerful medicines. She has a particular gift for treating children and is often called when other physicians have failed to help young patients. Word spreads about her success treating opium dependence in infants. Desperate parents bring babies from across Yorkshire, seeking help for crying that will not stop, and physicians who prescribe ever-increasing doses of laudanum. Eleanor treats each case with the same careful observation and gradual reduction she used with Catherine and Margaret. Some physicians denounce her methods, others study them and begin changing their own practices. Slowly, very slowly, attitudes begin to shift about the use of powerful medicines in infants. 5 years after opening her practice, Eleanor receives a letter from the British Medical Association. They wish to publish a paper she wrote about opium dependence in infants. It is a small victory, but a significant one. Female physicians are rarely published in major medical journals. Catherine and Margaret, now 10 years old, often visit Eleanor's practice. They help with simple tasks and seem fascinated by medicine. "When I grow up, I want to be a physician like Aunt Eleanor," Catherine declares one afternoon. "Then you shall," Eleanor tells her. "The path is easier now than when I started, though still not easy. But you have intelligence, determination, and the example of your father who supported a woman's right to pursue her calling. You can do anything you set your mind to." On a warm spring evening in 1882, Eleanor sits in her garden and reflects on the 9 years since she first heard the twins crying. That sound changed everything. It led her from the scullery to medical school, from servitude to respected profession, from powerlessness to the ability to help others. She thinks about all the babies she has saved from opium dependence, all the families she has helped, all the lives touched by the choice she made that March afternoon to step into a nursery where she did not belong and hold 2 suffering infants. The choice to trust her observations over authority, the choice to question what everyone else accepted, the choice to endure doubt and opposition because she knew she was right. Those choices made all the difference. Duke Ashworth visits that evening with news. "Dr. Waverley, the physician you contradicted years ago about the merchant's son, has just published a paper advocating for reduced use of laudanum in infant treatment. He cites your work extensively and admits his previous practices were harmful." Eleanor smiles. "That is good news. Every physician who changes their practice means more babies saved. He does not mention that he initially dismissed your diagnosis and called you a dangerous amateur. It does not matter. Pride is less important than progress. If my work helps children, that is all that matters." The Duke settles into a garden chair and looks at Eleanor with affection. "You have become exactly what I hoped when I first saw you calm my daughters. Not just a skilled physician, but a person who cares more about doing good than receiving credit. The world needs more physicians like you, Eleanor." The world is changing slowly. More women are entering medicine every year. Perhaps someday it will not be remarkable for a woman to be a physician. Perhaps someday a girl from any background can aspire to help others without facing the obstacles I faced. Perhaps, the Duke agrees, and when that day comes, it will be because women like you proved it was possible. They sit in comfortable silence as the sun sets over the Yorkshire countryside. Eleanor thinks of Catherine and Margaret, healthy and thriving, their difficult beginning nothing but a distant memory. She thinks of all the other children she has helped, all the families she has served, all the good she has been able to do because one day she chose to trust her instincts and question authority. The twins never slept until a poor maid did something unthinkable. She dared to see what others refused to see. She dared to act when others stood paralyzed by deference to authority. She dared to believe that a common servant might understand something that educated physicians missed. And that dare changed everything.